All right, the first thing we want to do here is bind our input fields to the object behind this form. So let's go to vehicle form component.html. Here's our make dropdown list. And on the right side, you can see we have used the ngModel directive to bind this to the make property of the vehicle object in our component. Now we're going to use the same technique with the other input fields in this form. But in this lecture, we're going to focus on the first section of this form. So here's the model dropdown list. I'm going to apply ngModel and bind this to vehicle.model. However, the object that we expect on the server, the name of this property there should be model ID, not model. So here we should use model ID. And to be consistent, I would like to rename this other property as well. So vehicle.makeID, and I'm going to set the name attribute to makeID as well. Now this means we need to go to our component, and anywhere we have a reference to this make, we should rename it to makeID. So let's go to vehicle form component. In onMakeChange method, this is where you're referencing that property. So makeID. Now back in our template. So we were working on this model dropdown list. We added this ngModel. Now whenever we use this ngModel directive, we should also set the name attribute. So model ID. Now below that, we have these radio buttons to determine if this vehicle is registered or not. So here's the first radio button with the value of true. Once again, ngModel. I'm going to bind this to vehicle.isRegistered. Now we don't need to set the name attribute because we set it earlier in the course. Now for the second input field, I'm going to copy this directive and apply it here. And finally, to make sure everything is set up properly, I'm going to go on top of this form, add a paragraph, and inside this, I want to render this vehicle as JSON. This is purely for debugging. I want to look at the content of this object before sending it to the server. So let's go to our new vehicle page. So currently, you can see our vehicle object is empty. I changed the make. Now we have make ID 1, beautiful. Change it to 2, perfect. Change it to blank. Now we don't really need to send this make ID on the server because our save vehicle resource object only needs the model ID. So what we store here is purely for the client side. It's going to be ignored on the server. Now let's set this to make 1 and select the model here. Beautiful, we have model ID. However, if I change the make, the model ID is not updated. So here we need to clear the model ID property. So let's go back to our component. In onMakeChange method, here we delete this.vehicle.modelID. Now back in the browser. So select make 1, select the model. Now change the make, model is gone. We only have the make ID, beautiful. Now finally, set this vehicle as registered. And you can see is registered is set to true. Beautiful. So the first section is working. Next, we're going to work on the feature section.